Years ago, I was your typical rebellious teenage girl, tired of the strict rules my parents put on me. We had our fair share of shouting matches before, but on one night in particular, I had enough. I took my backpack and left crying after a heated argument with my parents. I didn't know where I was going. I just wanted to get away. I wasn't old enough to drive, so I just started walking. After a mile or so, I decided to be out of the house until both my parents left for work early in the morning. Then I could come home, shower, and eat in peace. All I needed to do now was find a place to rest until the sun came up. There was somewhat of a forest that started 50 yards away from the road I was walking on. I figured all I needed to do now was find a place to rest for 6 hours or so and then head home. This was my naive way to show my parents that I wasn't a kid anymore. 20 yards into the tree line, I found a place to lay down and curl up with my jacket. I fell asleep relatively quickly, that is until I slowly came out of my sleep as I heard a twig snap. Before I opened my eyes, the leaves were crunching as footsteps approached. Still feeling groggy, I heard a deep voice nearby. Our lucky day. I quickly looked over where I heard the voice coming from. I saw the dark silhouette of two men, one of them using the screen on his phone guiding their way towards me. I sprang to my feet as fast as I could. As I did, I heard one of them say to the other, "Go." I started sprinting my way through the trees trying to get to the road before these two men caught me. Just before I could reach my full speed, I felt one of them grab the back of my hair and pulling me back into the woods. My momentum going forward stopped, but I kept trying to get to the road. The chunk of the hair that he grabbed eventually ripped off my head, and without hesitation, I ran out of the woods, made it to the road, and continued running back home. I looked over my shoulder every couple of seconds to see if I was being chased, but I wasn't. A couple of times looking back, I could see his illuminated phone screen just beyond the tree line. I made it home and was never so happy to see my mom and dad. We made a report with the police. Unfortunately, nothing ever came of it. It was so dark, I couldn't see what they looked like. I think about this story here and there throughout the years. I can't imagine how different my life would have been if I didn't get away. It was an unusually humid night last July. I don't go jogging often, but it just felt so nice outside, even it being 11 o'clock at night. I got on my running shoes and planned to run to the nearby park, run around the path that circles it, and then come home. Once I made it to the park, it wasn't as calm as peaceful as I'm used to. With nobody around and it being so dark, I felt like I needed to take extra precautions of my surroundings. I also took out my headphones just in case someone was to sneak up behind me. Shortly after doing that, I noticed an old beat-up car parked in the back end of the park. This was slightly confusing because there was a gate that was locked shut in the front entrance. So whoever's car that was wasn't going to be able to leave until the morning. As I continued my jog and was approaching the junky car, I saw a sudden spark from a lighter that lit up the inside. I could see 3, maybe 4 people inside smoking from a glass pipe with a sphere at one end. Because of watching Breaking Bad, I knew that was a meth pipe. I was a little startled, but honestly didn't care that much. I planned on going about my jog, get home, and go to bed. I ran past the car at my same pace as if I didn't see anything. Half a football field later, I heard the car's engine turn on. Then I heard tires screeching. I turned around and saw the car driving fast as if they were after me. I was no longer jogging anymore. I got off the road and began sprinting in the grass. I didn't look back, but I heard the car turn off the road and down the slight embankment. I thought they were going to run me over at this point. I sprinted towards the group of trees where I knew I would be safe for a moment. My goal was to make it to the softball field, then hop the outfield fence. That might buy me enough time to reach the entrance to the park, jump over the gate, and then I would be safe. But there was 30 yards of open grass to get to the softball field fence. The car was getting close, as now I had no trees to protect me. The headlights shined on me and the engine roared louder. The car was coming right at me from the side. I eventually got to the fence, used my hands with one swift motion, and with 2 seconds to spare, hoisted myself over. The car must have been going 30 miles an hour. I would have died if I was a little slower. I was close to completely getting out of the park now. All I had to do was exit the field next to one of the dugouts, and not far from that was the front gate. I knew that the way the park was built, there was a massive curb around the field. It would have to drive all the way back around to catch me. I didn't need to sprint at this point, but I did. I ran all the way home and called the police. You would think that was the end, but there was an extra bit of crazy for you. As I was giving my statement to the police at my house, there was a call of a fire at the park. The car that these junkies used to try to kill me was now in the park engulfed in flames. Because they weren't able to drive out of the park, they must have thought they were sitting ducks and they were gonna get caught, and tried to get rid of any evidence. The funny thing is, I wasn't even going to report them in the first place. Despite the fire, the police were able to get the VIN number on the vehicle and track down the owner. I don't know what kind of sentence he got, but he did go to prison. When I was 14, my best friend Dylan was staying the night at my house over the weekend. We mostly planned to play video games and watch movies. Around 10 o'clock, after my parents went to bed, we were hungry and needed some food. There was nothing but healthy stuff at home, so walking to the nearby 7-Eleven for chips and soda seemed like the best option. I had $20 of my own, and my parents let me go to 7-Eleven on my own before, but that was during the day. I figured at night would be a little different. When we arrived, standing outside was a man with face tattoos that looked like he's seen better days. At first, Dylan and I tried to ignore him, but before walking in, the guy asked us if we had any spare change. We sheepishly said no and walked inside. At the register, when I was paying for our stuff, I saw the guy outside looking directly at me, and possibly the amount of change the cashier was handing me. Before walking out, I told Dylan this, and if he talks to us, just ignore him. As soon as we got outside, he asked us for some change again. We didn't say anything and kept walking, but a little faster now. He kept asking us louder the farther we were. Eventually, he said, "I saw the fucking cash to get back to you." Right after that, he started following us. At first, at a steady pace. Dylan and I looked at each other as this guy was now screaming for us to give him money. We looked back at him at the same time and noticed a knife in his hand. We both took off sprinting, and so did this crazy guy with the knife, now yelling, "I'm gonna kill you, bitch." As we were running down our neighborhood, Dylan tells me to go the long way, assuming we could run faster than him and not give away where I live. When we were close to home, we hadn't heard him anymore, and he wasn't around to see us run home. I rushed through the front door in a panic. I felt like I had asthma and I couldn't catch my breath. Dylan was crying. I'd never seen him like this before. We have never been so scared in our lives. I ran upstairs to my parents' room and woke them up to tell them what happened. As I'm explaining, I'm looking out the window making sure we hadn't been followed. My mom called 911 as my dad was keeping an eye out as well. Police eventually received many calls to the 7-Eleven because he was still there terrorizing and threatening other people with his knife. Police were eventually able to subdue the guy. As I heard, there was a standoff at gunpoint. This would have been a horrific experience for anyone, but for a 14-year-old Dylan and I, we grew up really fast.